Hi guys, it's Silverwolf. So, today's video is going to be what I'm going to call, I don't know if other people have done it, they probably have, I just haven't seen it, a quarterly book wrap-up, where I wrap up all the books I've read, DNF'd, unhauled, every 3 months, because I'm a slow reader. I don't read, I can't read this entire shelf in a month. And then some. I can only read maybe 3 of these and a couple of manga volumes because they're easier to read. So to have a bit more to talk about in the video, I'm going to do it every 3 months. Because I think I might actually do it by month just to make it easier. So obviously we're starting with January. Hi, Editing Jess here. If you hear my TV, no you don't. I actually took a while in this video to get around to talking about my rating system, so I decided I'm going to put it here at the beginning before I actually talk about any of the books. A 1 star means it is not for me at all, it's just not my kind of story, or I absolutely fucking hated it. 2 stars is it's not awful, but it's uneventful, nothing really happens. Wouldn't reread it. 3 stars is it's fine, but it needs some changes, or there's a lot of things that need to change, but I still enjoyed it. 4 stars is fun and enjoyable, good story, kept me going. 5 stars is obviously the best thing ever, in my terms, and then I have a triangle for DNF'd or did not finish. I'm trying to keep to these rules of ratings. So even if I loved the story, would have maybe given it a 5 star, I'm trying to keep it in the rules and actually properly rating my books to decide, okay, is there anything even happening in this? Did I actually enjoy it? Are there things that need changed? Are there things I would have added to make it more interesting, etc, etc. I'm doing my best to keep to the rules instead of just rating what I feel like rating. I have nothing against people who do that. That's what I used to do. I'm just wanting to keep a rule with myself, I suppose. And that's just how I plan to go about it. And it's perfectly fine if no one else wants to do that. This is just for me anyway. That's my rating system. So have fun for the rest of the video of me yapping for an hour. Good luck. So in the month of January, I reread volumes 13, 14, 15 and 16 of Yona of the Dawn. I'm currently rereading this series to get caught back up on my thoughts and what the events have been for the next few volumes, because I have up to volume 40, but I haven't read 39 or 40 yet, and then 41 should be out sometime later this year. But I don't know how many volumes there will be in the entire series. In this series we follow Yona, where is she? Pink-haired girl is Yona. Technically it's supposed to be red, but it kind of looks pink. Who is the princess of Kuka Kingdom. She's very sheltered, doesn't really know much about the outside world, but when her cousin Suzanne comes to visit for her 16th birthday and ends up murdering her father. This is not spoilers, this literally all happens in the first volume. So he murders her father, takes the throne, and she and her best friend and bodyguard, Hawk, this guy, is forced to flee the kingdom. And they have to figure out how to survive, and she decides that as advice from Hawk's grandfather, he's an orphan, but he's been adopted and it's his grandfather, gives her advice to seek out the Oracle to give her some sort of divine trajectory of what she should do or what she can do for her life, and finds out that the 4 dragon warriors of legend, who were supposed to be a myth, are actually very real. And she starts to seek them out to make herself stronger, figure out more about her own kingdom to decide what to do next. My Yona of the Dawn manga doesn't actually go on these shelves, they're up in my room because this is my favourite series so far of all time. I don't know when I actually read this. I think I read this in December, but I restarted my journal because I wasn't liking how my last one was, and I barely even got halfway through that journal. I just didn't like how it was looking. I hadn't been filling it in properly, so I wanted to just get a restart, fresh kind of thing. I think I got 50 or so chapters through The Woman in Black by Susan Hill or Suzanne Hill. Susan Hill. I was so fucking bored. I like the picture, like I like the look and the feel of the cover, but oh my god, I was bored. I think this one is the one that the movie The Woman in Black is based on, you know, that horror movie. That freaked me out when I first saw a bit of it when my dad was watching it, but I was curious about the actual story. Like, it's a short book. It is not that long. It's only, what, 216 pages. It is not a long book, and I was so bored that I just didn't end up picking it up. So I DNF'd it, and I'm also going to be unhauling it. I don't even remember what actually happens in this. Arthur Kipps, a young lawyer, travels to a remote village to put the affairs of a recently deceased client in order. He works alone in her fog-shrouded house, unaware of the disturbing secrets it holds, but his unease grows when he glimpses a mysterious young woman dressed in black at his client's funeral. The locals are strangely unwilling to talk about the sighting, and Kipps is forced to uncover the true identity of the woman in black on his own, leading to a desperate race against time when he discovers her true intent. Literally all I remember is we see him get to this house with his family. There's some sort of conflict with him and his siblings, and then they sit around and tell ghost stories. That's all I remember from that first section. I was so bored. There was nothing to like. There was no one to grab for, or there was no one making me want to read it. Like, I had no favorite character. There was no personality to anybody. It was just really boring. So that is being unhauled. And the next is February, which is not actually that long because I forgot to lift this out. I read this last year, and I think maybe a little bit the year before. I finished it this year though. I finished the last, I think, 5 chapters in February, so I just put it in the journal for that, of New Moon, which is the second book in the Twilight Saga series. But we follow Bella again. Her 18th birthday is happening, so this is sort of 4 or 5 months after the first book, I think. It's her 18th birthday. She doesn't like celebrating it because she doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that she's older than Edward. He died at 17 to become a vampire, and she doesn't want to get older than that. She wants to be a vampire, to be forever a teenager like him, with him. But obviously the vampires don't care at all for her agency or her anatomy, so even when she says, "I don't want a birthday party," they ignore her. They put up a little birthday party at the Collins house. She gets a paper cut, and Jasper ends up going for her. If you don't recall or haven't read this yet, Jasper's ability is to feel everyone's emotions, but he can also manipulate those emotions. But he's also the newest vegetarian. He's the newest in the family to only eating animal blood, not human blood. Him feeling his own thirst and feeling everyone else's thirst, it's too much for him to control, so he ends up going for her. He's obviously held back, but obviously Edward, being the fucking dumbass, throws her into a table of vases, which cuts her up with more blood. But the werewolves are the bad guys. They're the ones always in danger for her. Because of this, Edward decides, I'm too much trouble for you, and you're like super obsessed with me, even though I love it, but bye, and just dips and leaves her in the woods, and she becomes really fucking depressed. I will say, I don't know where it is. I don't remember where it is in the book. This thing of the months of her depression spiral where nothing of importance is there for her because she's just in a zombie state. I do like that. But the portrayal of her depression and her awareness of how reckless her behaviour is just to see a hallucination of Edward is so poorly written, and then her depression just vanishes the second she runs into Edward. That's not how depression works. I am very much in love with my current boyfriend and I still have depression. Does not work like that. And Jacob was really cute in this too. I'm really nervous to go into the third book because I know he gets character assassinated. Literally everyone talks about it. Stephanie Meyer does not know how to write a fucking romance book. She just knows how to write an abusive relationship that could have not been an abusive relationship if she just figured out how people talked. I gave this a 2. I gave Twilight a 1, so this is only slightly better than Twilight, so I gave it a 2. Because I enjoy it more than I enjoyed Twilight at the very least. I am continuing it only because I'm doing a video on it and I want to read more on the werewolves because they're my favourite, even though I know they get ripped to fucking shreds. Because werewolves always have to be the bad guys, and it's so convenient the bad guys are Native American people, even though you couldn't get the main Native American character to be a Native American actor. Anyway, 2 out of 10. Unfortunately continuing it for a video, but otherwise I would not continue. And then into March, I DNF'd Under the Hawthorn Tree, which made me really sad because I loved this movie. I DNF'd it at page 63. But yeah, Under the Hawthorn Tree by Marita, Conlon-McKenna, which follows Ellie, Michael, and Peggy, who are siblings, as they set off to find their great aunts. I think they're great aunts from their mother's side, because their mother and their father are currently not present. They've kind of gone missing, and it's set during the famine in Ireland. There's a movie about this that you can't find it anymore because I think it was only on VHS. I loved it, so I thought I would like this, and it is a very short book. Oh my god, I was not happy with this. The writing is god-awful. I was very disappointed in this. For one thing, I want to read more about my own country's history. Secondly, I was not expecting the type of writing in this. It is very much written for children. Like that style of writing where it treats you like you can't understand nuance. But along with that, there are sections in this where I'm like, that doesn't make sense. There are too many starving and sick people in this story who are very unnaturally kind to these 3 kids who are also hungry. Like, these starving people are giving these kids the last apple just because they're children. People are not that nice, especially during a famine. Not a chance. But it's disappointing that I didn't end up reading that properly, but I did DNF it, so I'm also unhauling it. I then read the next 3 volumes. Reread the next three volumes of Young of the Dawn, 17, 18, and 19. I don't need to explain what those are again, I already did. Because I'm not going to explain everything that happens in these volumes because it's a manga series. So it would spoil a whole load of shit that happens. So gonna leave that as it is right now, but just the other... And then we read The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I've been wanting to read this for a while. Finally did, and I gave it a 4. We follow Katniss Everdeen, who lives in District 12. It is a dystopian world of South America, I think? Somewhere in America that's split up into sections because there was a whole world catastrophe thing that kind of nearly ended the whole world. They're split up into districts now, and the capital is basically the government. There was a rebellion from the districts against the capital, so now they have this show, this tournament it's a death tournament. You throw 2 kids from each district between the ages of 12 and 18, one girl and one boy, into this death tournament until only one survives, and that is their victor. Originally it was only as a punishment, and now it is also as a form of entertainment and control. But Katniss volunteers in place of her little sister who got picked at the reaping. Her and Peter Millark, the boy from her district, are forced into this death tournament and have to try and figure out how the fuck to survive. I did enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I expected to. I'm still figuring out what I'm looking for as a reviewer, as a reader. I'm still trying to figure out what things I do and don't like in stories, that kind of thing, so bear with me. But I did enjoy The Hunger Games. I just think, for me personally, it was hyped up as better than the movie a little too much, so my expectations were a little too high. I do have a different video that goes a little bit more in depth on my feelings in this book, so you'll see that then. I understand why people think this is better than the movie, but personally I actually did enjoy the movie more than this. However, I will say that the characterization of Peeta is so much better in the book. He's such a simp in the movie, and he's still a bit of a simp in this, but at least he actually has a bit of fucking banter. He has a bit more of a personality. But yeah, in general, it's a good book. I wouldn't say I was excited reading the whole thing. I flew through it, I read it very easily. It just wasn't what I was expecting it to be. And I still struggle with figuring out what type of first-person view I like to read. Because I write stories, but I write them in third person. But specific third person? It's in third person, but you're only following one specific character unless it changes point of view. First person, more often than not, is so annoying to me that I just don't like reading it, but I gave it a 4. Then we get to this one. Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I DNF'd it. I DNF'd it at page 53. Chapter 6. I got 6 chapters in and DNF'd it. This is not mine. I did not buy it. It is my sister's. She bought this, It Ends With Us, and Verity. She's only gotten like 20 pages into It Ends With Us. She bought them like 3 years ago. She's not a big reader, so I don't know why she actually bought these when she knows herself that she's not going to read them. I have seen videos on Colleen Hoover's books. I know what happens in them. I just wanted to see for myself how fucking bad it was. And I was planning to do a video where I read every book from Colleen Hoover. If it was a series, then it would be the first book only, and then the rest is standalones, and rank them to see how bad her writing really was. And I can't even get through one book. So, not a chance. I am not doing that to myself. But Ugly Love follows this girl called Tate, who is a nurse, I think, and she's going to live with her brother, but she meets her brother's friend Miles, who is the typical brooding character, has a bit of a bad attitude, and then when we're in his perspective, oh my god, I wanted to rip the book to shreds. What the fuck kind of writing is in this? Genuinely. I genuinely don't understand why she decided to write like this. I've never understood this format unless it was for poems or letters in story. This type of shit. Why are you writing like that? I hate it when books do that. But that's all in Miles' perspective only. Tate is boring, but I could probably handle her as a character more than I could Miles. The second we got into Miles' perspective, I was like, what the fuck? Didn't like either of the characters, they were both boring. And Miles felt very possessive when he didn't even know her. But like, his writing is how my idea info dumps look like without any editing. I DNF'd it. It's not my book, so I can't unhaul it, but fuck that. The first deluxe edition of The Girl from the Other Side by Seal Arun. I don't know how to pronounce that, I am sorry. Where we follow this, he's an outsider, but he's more or less like a demon type of character who found this little girl who was abandoned by her grandmother, decides to basically look after her. And that's kind of the whole thing, like there is no specific plot, it's just this demon trying to protect this little girl and make sure she doesn't get hurt, which is very cute. I had started reading this last year and finished it in in March. But I enjoyed it, and I have the second one here, so I will be continuing it. But they're gorgeous. Even if I don't end up liking the series as a whole, which I do think I will, it is gorgeous. I also read volumes 20, 21, 22, and 23 of Unit of the Dawn. We meet some new characters in this section. I'm gonna keep rereading it because I genuinely love this story so much. It is so fun. But I love the characters too. I also have the anime. They need to make a season 2. Oh my god, I really want a season 2. Some of these are for another video, manga related, but I read the first volume of That Is Upside Down, Daytime Shooting Star by Mika Yamamori. I didn't DNF it, I finished the volume. We follow Suzanne, who is very abruptly forced to move to Tokyo by her dad because they have to go somewhere for her work and she can't come with because she is school. And she's forced to go live with her uncle who she barely knows in Tokyo and has to make new friends all over again. And one of her love interests is her teacher. And I'm aware of the fact because I looked it up. The teacher does not become the love interest, like the end goal love interest in this, but the fact that it's even an option, the fact that it's even there, I don't know what the author was planning with that. I just don't like that inclusion. It makes me uncomfortable, so I'm not continuing this, but I did finish it. I read I Hear the Sunspot, volume 1 by Yuki Fumino, where we follow Taichi, who keeps getting into fights, is trying to find a job because he needs money for food and stuff, can't get one, but he ends up asking Kohei, who is a deaf student at his college, to be his note taker. so he can take notes for him during class, and in exchange Kohi agrees to give him food. They develop a friendship, and they also end up catching feelings for each other, stuff like that. I actually ended up not enjoying this that much. Nothing really happens that much. Modern based stories, similar to Daytime Shooting Star, the ones that aren't fantasy, that aren't magical, things like that, I find a hard time actually clicking to them. So before people try and start with that, it's not because it's LGBT plus related. It is because there's nothing really happening and it bores me, which makes me really sad because I was hoping to love this. I have the other books here, basically the full set. I think I'm missing one, but I didn't enjoy the first one, so I'm not continuing with the rest. Unfortunately, I'm not continuing this, so if you do want this set, I will be selling it. The Apothecary Diaries, Volume 1 by, where are you at? Natsu Hyuga, where we follow Mao Mao in a China-inspired imperial era type location, like with palace and princesses and kings and queens and all that kind of stuff. And she's an apothecary, but she got kidnapped and then sold to the palace and works there as a servant girl. She figures out why certain people in the palace keep dying off. She gives a warning. One of them takes that warning and the other doesn't, so the one that doesn't ended up dying. Jinshi, who's in charge of making sure basically the consorts and the servants and stuff are okay, they're doing their jobs, they're fine, kind of thing, from what I've gathered anyway. He figures out that she's the one who gave the warning because it's very typical of the servants to be illiterate, and she wrote a letter as a warning, so she is literate, and she's the only one who is literate. So then she is given a new job as the taste tester for consort Gyokyo, who had taken the warning, and she's now fine. She becomes her lady in waiting and the food tester because she's an apothecary. She knows very much about poisons and foods and stuff like that, and she fucking loves poisons. She loves the taste of poisons, and while I'm here, I also read Volume 2, so even though that's on the next page. I did read both volumes. I got too impatient waiting to get some money to buy the next few, so I ended up starting the anime. Haven't watched all of it yet, but I'm really loving it. Can't wait to read the volumes as well, because sometimes they leave things out or they change things slightly different, and I'm interested in that, but I'm loving it so far. It's so good. A little disappointed in this. Solo Leveling by Kyugong. I DNF'd this, and I didn't DNF it because I wasn't enjoying it. I DNF'd it because I got scared. But we follow Jinwoo, who is a E-level hunter. Hunters are people who were born with specific abilities, because randomly at some point portals started opening and like demons, or I'm just gonna call them demons, started coming through the portals, and like dungeons opened and stuff, and you have to clear out the dungeon for the portal to close. Hunters are the ones who do that as a job, and Jinwoo is one of them, but he's considered the worst hunter ever, but he still has to do it to be able to afford his mum's hospital bills and for his sister to go to university. We go into this dungeon with his friend, what is her name again? Johi, I think it's Johi, who is a healer. But they clear out the first dungeon. He's really badly injured. He constantly gets injured every time he goes into a dungeon. But then there is a second dungeon connected to this one, which is very rare, but it does happen. It's a double dungeon. So they go down the second dungeon and they get trapped into this room with a bunch of massive statues. Someone tries to go out the door and two of those statues come to life and kill them. So they are fucked. This is not the dungeon they thought they were going into. I think, if I remember correctly, the first dungeon of this was a D level, so only slightly higher than Jinwoo's hunter level. It was supposed to be an easy dungeon. But this second section, the double dungeon section, is not a D level. This is like an S level kind of dungeon. They're all fucked. But Jinwoo figures out that essentially there are rules in the room. In order to survive, they have to treat the statue, the main one, the biggest one in the room, who's sitting down, who can shoot lasers out of their eyes basically, and had just murdered like 30 of them. You have to treat them like a god and like bow down to them. I only got to that point because the statue smiles, like it grins, and it is fucking creepy. It really scared the shit out of me. And I don't know why that scared me, but Titans and Attack on Titan don't. And I think it might be because when the Titans' faces are shown, the skin color is bright enough that it doesn't freak me out. This is like a dark shade of blue statue. At nighttime, like in the dark with very few lights around, it really freaked me out. I had to DNF it. Like, I don't want to miss any conversations. Hey, I just saw it again. It's really fucking creepy. I can't get through it. I don't want to miss any conversations. And if that freaked me out in the first volume, there's a good chance something later down on the line is going to freak me out as well. So I had to DNF it, unfortunately. I then read The Maze Runner by James Dashner. I gave this a 3-star, which is very disappointing. I love the movies of this, and I'm grateful that there were so many changes to the movies from this, because it makes it so much better. But when I first started reading this, so we follow Thomas, who shows up in an elevator in the middle of fucking nowhere in this massive like area of grass with walls surrounding it that is called the Glade. He remembers nothing except his name. And it's the same with everybody else there. It's all boys, all teenagers. And he discovers that they are literally stuck there. They don't know why they're there. And outside the walls is a massive maze, and they have to try and figure out how to get out through the maze. But they've been going at this for 2 years. You don't know if there is actually any point anymore. When I first started reading this, I was visualizing all the characters as the actors from the movies. Love the characters in the movies. Very quickly, the characters did not feel like their characters. Thomas didn't feel like Thomas. Albie didn't feel like Albie. Newt, bit neutral. Mino was a lot more sassy in this, I think. Overall, they feel like entirely different stories. That's how different they feel to me. The characters are a lot colder in this. The writing is so shit. It feels like James Dashner was uncomfortable doing any sort of interesting description of something. Thomas was very hypocritical to me, and everyone was just an asshole, but Thomas was also very chosen one-like, the way he's written. In the movies, it more felt like, well, this had to happen to somebody, and we just happened to be following Thomas's perspective. But he's also very humble in the movies. And he's not necessarily not humble in this, he's just very there. Like, why did we have to follow him? Why could we not follow a different character who actually had a fucking personality? Overall, this is very disappointing. I also have more thoughts on this in the same video I'm doing the Hunger Games book on, so that's all I'm going to say on this. I'm unfortunately probably not going to continue this. I'm going to keep the book for now, but I don't know if I'm actually going to continue the series, which really annoys me because I love the story, but the book was a massive disappointment. So then I read the first volume of Orange by Ichigo Takana. Now, I mean the first volume, because this is an omnibus. I only read there. I cried like 3 times in that first section. I haven't read the rest of it just yet because I've been going through a few more books. How did I cry that early on? But we follow Naho, who's in 11th grade. I don't know what that is. I think that's in high school though, like maybe 15, 16. And she receives a letter from herself 10 years in the future. At first, she writes it off as a prank, but as the letter's predictions come true one by one, Naho realizes that the letter might be the real deal. Her future self tells Naho that a new transfer student, a boy named Kakeru, will soon join her class. The letter begs Naho to watch over him, saying that only Naho can save Kakeru from a terrible future. Who is this mysterious boy, and can Naho save him from his destiny? The characterizations are very cute. The relationships feel really cute. They feel very teenage-like. Like I said, I have the other omnibus and the future and Dear to You or one. So I do have basically the full series. I will be continuing this. I'm very scared and very sad because I read it. I read the first volume and cried like 3 times. So I think I'm going to be crying a lot reading this. I am enjoying it, so I am going to continue it. I then read The Blue Exorcist by Kazu Kato, where we follow Rin Okumura, who was raised by Father Fujimoto, who is a famous exorcist. And one day he figures out that demons are a very real thing, and so is exorcism, and that he is the illegitimate son of Satan himself. And Fujimoto ends up getting killed when Rin insults him, basically, and Satan can only possess Fujimoto when he is weak. So he possesses him, basically claims that he's going to kidnap Rin because he, due to being half demon, half human, is his connection to the human world, and he wants to take over. But Rin's like, fuck you, hell no, and becomes his demon self, and is now forced to go to a study. He has to go to an academy to study to be an exorcist because he wants to be. He wants to get back at Satan, but he also wants to get stronger for himself. Very interesting. I will be continuing that. I also read the first volume of Komi Can't Communicate by Tomohito Oda. I have the first 5 volumes up on the shelf. This is where we follow socially anxious Shoko Komi, who, because of her anxiety, physically struggles to talk to people. But people take her stoicism, her like standoffish personality, as being confident and suave and all that shit. But really in her head she's like, can you stop looking at me please? I am about to blow up. Tadano, who I can't figure out if he's a new student or if he's just a quiet dude. He just keeps to himself. He is basically the first and only person to figure out that her not talking to people isn't because she thinks she's better than them or that she's confident. She's severely anxious. They talk to each other through the chalkboard, and he asks her, what's your biggest dream? And she says to make 100 friends. So he suggests, I'll be your first friend, and that he'll help her get friends. And that is the entire plot of this story. There are currently, I think, 30 volumes. I don't know if the 30th volume is out in English yet, but I think there's about 30 volumes overall. Personally, with a plot like this, I don't think it needs that many volumes, but we'll see how it goes when I'm reading it. I will continue this story. The severe anxiety, even though I don't experience it to that degree or in that way, I relate heavily to it, so I'm very interested to read this story. I enjoyed the first volume. One of the characters I still don't really like that much, but hopefully she calms down later on, but we'll see. The next one is a massive disappointment as well. I read The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I DNF'd this. I got to there. I have a rule with myself, specifically with books. I will get to at least halfway through before deciding to DNF it. I know with Ugly Love I didn't do that, and I didn't do that with Under the Hawthorn Tree either. I just could not get through Ugly Love or Under the Hawthorn Tree, so the writing from this wasn't too bad. It was just... me. I was so disappointed in this. We follow, there's a dual timeline in this story where we follow Caroline in the present timeline, who's just found out her boyfriend, husband, I think it's her husband, has been cheating on her. So they're supposed to have a week vacation in London, but she goes ahead on her own to get some space from him, and obviously he doesn't fucking listen to her. While she's in London, she starts to find clues on this apothecary from olden times, from like, I think it was 2 centuries before her, that had been helping women poison men who hurt them, helping them get out of situations, things like that, but she only helped women, and her name was Nella. She is the lost apothecary, and we follow her perspective as well. We also follow Eliza, who's a 12-year-old little girl who's one of the women that Nella helps, but then just doesn't fuck off. Nothing really happens in this. And I did read reviews to figure out everything else that happens. Apparently Caroline essentially forgives the man for cheating on her, and also apparently he intentionally almost kills himself to guilt her, to make her feel guilty for not forgiving him. What? Nella was interesting, but Eliza, why the fuck is Eliza there? Also, can someone please tell this 12-year-old girl that a man who's just died is not possessing or hunting her? She's just on her period, for fuck's sake. But yeah, and apparently Eliza's supposed to be this surrogate daughter for Nella. There was way too much talk of pregnancy in this, like losing children, wanting children, having children, and then having things not go right. I don't care for pregnancy. As someone who doesn't want kids, the whole process scares the shit out of me, especially in our world today. Too much talk on it. I don't mind it being part of a character's storyline, but it kind of felt like every woman in this story was being connected and bonded to specifically through children, and I don't like that. It felt like all these women is mothers, or to be mothers, or a wannabe mother, but can't be a mother. kind of situation. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But also, like, nothing happens. It's so boring. Caroline figures out things so fast, but she also figures out about things that shouldn't be found that easily. And she doesn't seem to have a proper interest in it. Like, she's supposed to be a history fanatic, but she's not going into looking for the lost apothecary because of history. She's going into it because it passes the time. I don't know, that's what it felt like to me, and this was a big disappointment. I really, really, really wanted to love this story, but I didn't. I DNF'd it, and I'm not gonna keep it. This will be on hold. Back again. There were a couple of comments that I didn't realize I never mentioned in the video, so I'm just gonna put it in here really quickly. I wish the story had gone more into depth on Nella's moral ambiguity, because she helps women literally murder men, but she refuses to let this other woman, the second woman you meet that comes into her shop for poison, to hurt a woman because she's going after her mistress. I wish there was more of an in-depth conversation on moral ambiguity in that situation, and what properly caused her to go the way she did, because there is conversation on why she chose to give out poisons, and it always comes back to a man hurting a woman, which I fully understand. I don't think telling a 12-year-old you've barely known a day why you've decided to start murdering men because your husband is the reason that your child died in your womb, like, you know, that felt rushed exposition. But like, I would love it if we just saw a story of Nella Kill Bill on her way as the lost apothecary and having to escape from the law. Like, that would have been so interesting. I have nothing against a revenge story, a woman going after men who've wronged her. I have nothing against that, especially if you've written it really well. I'm actually writing one myself, so like, I don't have anything against that, but that would have been so much more interesting than what we got. I do want to clarify though, with the pregnancy thing, I don't have a problem if a character has pregnancy as part of her story, or if the entire story, like the point of it, and it's in the marketing of wanting a child and not being able to, having a child and losing them, like if that's the point, like it was never something marketed as part of the plot, that I don't have a problem with. It's dumbing down a woman's existence to just being a mother and having everyone bond through motherhood solely, and that's it. That is what I have a problem with. So I just wanted to clarify that. Don't have any problem with the pregnancy itself. It's the way it's shown that I don't like it. And I currently don't have the physical book. I read it on ebook. Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerry Maniscalco. I'm aware of the fact that that has a lot of mixed reviews. I'm actually going to do a video on that series, so I'm not going to go into too much thoughts on this. I gave it 3 stars. I've seen the reviews. I get the negatives 100%, but I actually really enjoyed it. And there's a lot of shit that I do need to talk about in a different video. A lot of stuff needs fixed in that story, and there was a lot of things that didn't have the oomph that I was looking for. But I still enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed it. I flew through it so quickly. But I couldn't give it a 4 because I have rules with my ratings. I'm not going to give it a 4 just because I really enjoyed it, if I know that there are things that need fixed in the story. I will be continuing it, but it does need stuff fixed. But we follow this girl called Emilia, who lives in Italy apparently. The only thing you know that it's in Italy is because it says Sicily. Like, there's no description of buildings and stuff like that are in Italy in this olden time era kind of thing. But she's a witch, and her twin sister Vittoria, her Nona, is constantly giving warnings about the wicked and being hunted by the devil and stuff like that. But one night, Vittoria is out and Emilia finds her and she is dead. That might be a big spoiler, but I saw it coming from a fucking mile away. She dies and Emilia decides to go on a hunt to try and figure out who's responsible to kill them. She, in the process, ends up summoning and binding basically the demon god, Wrath, one of the 7 deadly sins, the wicked. The wicked are the 7 deadly sins. They're basically demon princes, and she summons Wrath, and he was there the night that she found her sister, so she thinks he's responsible, but he's actually maybe not. But she binds him in this circle, magic circle, that prevents him from attacking her and gets him to help her figure out who's responsible. And obviously there's the wicked plot, there is a murder mystery, there is apparently romance. Not a big fan of the romance part because I don't feel like it is romance. It doesn't feel like they actually like each other. Wrath doesn't feel like Wrath. He's not angry enough to be Wrath. Now, I like the fact he's not an angry, abusive guy. I appreciate that fact, but he's Wrath. He is the deadly sin of Wrath. He's supposed to be angry. He's not angry enough. He doesn't feel like Wrath to me. The other deadly sins, we don't meet all of them in this book. I'm assuming we meet the rest of them in the next one. I do think they were really interesting the way they were written. Oh my god, they're so... I want to punch all of them. They're so gross. Which makes Wrath the best in comparison, but he was already the best in them, to be honest, because he's genuinely not. He's not a dick. He has good banter with Amelia. I do like that. It's more of just Amelia's personality isn't established enough. Her relationship with her sister isn't established enough before her sister dies. We mostly hear about what Victoria was like through Amelia's monologue, and I don't like that. Also, why the fuck are the first 10 chapters just a recipe book? I didn't like that. That took me a bit to get through, but after that, I flew through the book. I was enjoying it. I know I sound like I'm hating on the book, but like I said, I enjoyed it. But that's why I give it 3 stars. There's a lot of stuff that needs fixed in this story. That's everything I've read for the first 3 months of this year. However, I will be including these few books. I didn't have these in a video because I read these technically last year. Somewhere around there, I read the first volume of Final Fantasy Lost Stranger, Assassin's Creed Dynasty, and Assassin's Creed Blade of Xiaojun. I'm not going to go into what they're about. I could not be bothered right now. I'm very tired. And I will be continuing all 3 of them. And then I DNF'd all these. Chased Heaven, Love of Kill, I also have volume 2. Say I Love You, which is really disappointing because I remember liking the anime. The Wolf Boy Is Mine, and then The Last Vampire by Christopher Pike. I DNF'd this there. I used to read these whenever I was in high school, and I really enjoyed them. And I tried to read them somewhere last year, couldn't get through it. Too fucking sexualized for a woman vampire. I was so bored and uncomfortable, so I DNF'd it. No. Fuck no. And obviously, like I said, I DNF'd all these, getting sold as well. But yeah, so that is my quarterly wrap up. Everything I've DNF'd and that I'm not continuing will be sold on my Depop. It'll be linked in my description. I'm hoping that this year I get a proper start on my shelves. I really want to get through reading most of these. I have too many unread books, but I'm making progress, slowly but surely. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. Comment whatever you would like, any recommendations. If you want to see more content, eventually, click subscribe. If you want to be updated on when that content comes out, hit the little notification bell. It should update you. I hope you have a good day and take care of yourself and take care of the pack while I'm away. Bye!